Hey everybody, welcome to this fifth webinar that we're hosting with Companion.energy. We started doing this a while ago to like spread the knowledge about the energy market, to spread knowledge about flexibility and what the potential of it is. We've seen some great enthusiasm from people who joined, so very happy with that. Lots of people who are following the webinars. And so this is kind of the last one that we're doing before we take a little bit of a summer break from the webinars, but we'll be coming back probably in September, October somewhere. The webinar of today will have a focus about energy markets with a specific focus on electricity price volatility. And for this, we invited Julien Jomaux. Probably some of you will know him from his LinkedIn posts, from his Substack. He's basically an expert on the topic. If you don't follow him yet on LinkedIn, then definitely do. He has very interesting posts, insights from, let's say, different European countries. So big advice on that. So Julien has next to this LinkedIn post, of course, a Substack as well, where you can read like more extensive reports. So Julien, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Before I go and ask you some questions, the idea of today would be that we have about 20 minutes where I interview you, to ask you some questions that we with Companion.energy find interesting. But there are quite some people following it, the webinar online. If you, the viewers, have any questions about some topics that you find very interesting, don't hesitate, put them in the chat, put them in the questions box, and we'll make about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the amount of questions that we get, of course, time in the end to answer these questions. So please go ahead and don't hesitate to ask any questions. So Julien, diving straight in, you have quite a popular LinkedIn profile and blog on energy prices. Could you tell us a little bit how you got started writing that blog?
So I've always been very much interested into the topics, electricity markets and energy in general. I'm myself graduated in energy, and then I started my career in the sector. With my professional experience, I had to look into the electricity markets more in details. Where I was based for the last few years, and based on that, I was like, okay, I think there is something to basically to dig a little bit into more deeply, and I started to do that. Also because I'm really like passionate about that. I was always reading, always trying to to learn. And then my wife at some point said to me, like, oh, maybe you should just start writing. And I say, okay, that's a good idea. I'll start. I've seen that Substack is a good platform for that. So I started like that. I was planning to have maybe like 100 subscribers. And then at the end, it came to now, I think like 2,500, something like that. So I was very surprised about the success. And that's why I continue writing. I got amazing feedback as well. So that's why that kept me pushing on writing.
Okay, cool. So 2,500 subscribers. That's I think probably a couple of years ago, or like let's say 5 years ago. This probably would have been a more niche topic. I would say so. I mean, the interest in this has been growing over the years. What do you think makes this topic so popular these days?
So I think, the general topic of decarbonization is a hot topic, and it's going to be a hot topic for the coming decades because it's a process. It will be probably a long process. Hopefully, it will go fast, but I mean, it's not that easy. So it's in the mouth of everybody. And I think one of the key elements of the decarbonization process is the electricity sector. One of the key to actually, push for clean, no emission in your economy is basically to foster electricity and put renewables on the system. So that's why a lot more people are interested, because that's one of the key to lead to the decarbonization goal.
Okay, that's very clear. And did you have any goals in mind when starting to write this blog? I mean, you're trying to educate people. are there certain topics that you thought like, people don't understand this very well, and I want to educate people on this, or give them a little bit more insights? Are there any topics that you thought, could use more explanation?
So I didn't have any goal at the beginning. I was just like, okay, I write because I like writing, and I want to share. Also, when you write something, you basically learn, and you basically have a better structure in your mind afterwards. So it also helps you. It helped me a lot in my job, actually. And then I noticed that yes, there are some key things that I think are not well understood. Maybe not from the audience here, because I think it's quite a specific audience. But I would say that in general, something that is not well understood in the general public when you speak up with your friends and family is that electricity, it's very much something that has to be, that has a price at certain moment and change all the time. And with the renewables, it's going to be the case even more. And that's something that is not well understood, because people, at the end of the day, they pay their bills. In general, it's a fixed amount of money per kilowatt hour consumed. So they don't get that 1 kilowatt hour might be worth nothing and might be worth a lot when you have a deficit in the system. And this variability is something that is not well understood by the general public, and it has a lot of implication. For example, when we say, okay, like renewables are cheaper when you compare with LCOE, level cost of electricity, it's true, but it's only one part of the equation, because you want the system to run 100% of the time. So it's not because you just put the lowest LCOE at all the time that you will get the cheapest one, the cheapest system. So it's more complex than that, and that's what I try to explain in my Substack and in my post. This concept of variability of the prices of electricity.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job at it, I would say. I find very interesting posts always. Coming to kind of those posts, and you highlight like a lot of the times market fluctuations, volatility. Of course, you've got like, due to like those loads of renewables coming into the grid. What would you say are the most common causes of this short-term fluctuations, short-term volatility? Is it always the classic renewables? Are there some other items at play? Go ahead.
It really depends on what you are looking for. If you look at the day-ahead markets, then you have this classical merit order effect that is always there. So it's based on the marginal cost of the power plant. So of course, renewables have a big impact, because in general they have a close to zero marginal cost. But when I say renewable, it's mostly wind and solar. When you go to hydro, it's much more complicated, and it's a very interesting topic, because hydro is large reservoir that tends to forecast the price in the future and incorporate that into their bidding strategy. So it's even more complex. So it's the classical merit order effect that's happening. Of course, you have some scarcity prices when basically you need to reach the peak, and you need to have some startup of power plants and those kind of things that basically squeeze the prices upwards, especially in the evening when they were not there during the afternoon, because they have to shut down and then to operate again during the evening. So you have this kind of effect, but it all comes to the fact that the market it's priced on the marginal price. Yeah. But then when you look at other markets and the more short-term markets, the intraday markets, or like the balancing market, then you have different things happening as well. One of the things that is often happening is error in the forecast of renewable, for example. When you have a deviation, you expect it 1 giga, then you got 2 giga. Then of course it creates an imbalance in the system, and then you have this intraday market being activated. So people trying to cover this error, and then you also see that in the imbalance market in fine. So it depends on which time horizon you are looking at, and of course you have also the future markets. The long-term prices, the market which have also some different kind of dynamics. But that's why it makes really interesting, because it's quite complex.
Yeah, that's true. And going maybe a little bit more detail in those intraday markets where you say, like, of course, there is a lot of happening there because of corrections, because people maybe forecasted wrongly, or do you think there is still a lot of potential there to maybe forecast it better and to have, let's say, less fluctuations in the intraday market? Is there still a lot of potential to improve algorithms and those kinds of things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert in forecasting those things, so I cannot speak for the people doing that. I guess there's still some potential. I mean, it's all about weather forecast, but as you know, weather it's complicated because you might, especially for solar, for example, you might have a cloudy day and it's almost impossible to actually forecast the position of the clouds. Exactly. I mean, you can have the best is when you have no sun at all, it's gray. Then basically you know what's happening. Or when it's completely blue, which doesn't really happen a lot in Belgium, but still it's easier when it's completely blue or completely gray. But when it's in between, when it's like half, I think it's very complicated. And then you have things similar for the wind as well. Forecasting the wind. I have the feeling might be, I mean, it has a different dynamics, but I don't want to speak for the people that are more expert than me on that. But I believe that, hopefully there's still some improvement to be made.
Great. All right. Yeah. Of course, you're no renewables forecaster, but just thought it was an interesting topic to go ahead on it. Maybe going into another topic. One thing I find always interesting on your posts is, as a Belgian, and we are active in the Belgian market, in the Netherlands, in the Dutch market. We always tend to focus kind of on those countries and follow up quite closely on how electricity price variability is there. But of course, there is like Spain, Italy, Germany, also interesting things happening there. And you kind of do a good job on comparing like what's happening in these different countries, I find. What would you say are there? And there are a lot of differences I find between the countries. What are the key drivers of these differences between the countries?
I mean, it's all very country specific. So it's you have to study basically the country. It's difficult for me to make some generalization of what's happening. I think one of the key elements also that I've noticed recently. When I analyze, it's also the impact of hydro with large reservoir. So when the hydro is full, then you start to have like very bottom prices all the time, and you start to have this fluctuation variability that really decreases a lot, because basically those hydro power plants, they have to produce, so they are willing to basically sell at a low price. So we have seen that, for example, in March, April in Spain, where the reservoir were like historically high, and the prices really crashed. I mean, it was not only during the solar peak; it was like most of the hours. And then there, it's basically because this hydro with large reservoir, they have huge potential for storing energy. I mean, we are not speaking about like a large scale battery where they can store up to hundreds of megawatt hour or gigawatt hour. There, it's in terawatt hours of energy stored. So it's another level, and it has this effect of flattening the curves. And in countries where you don't see those assets, like the Benelux, for example, and Germany in particular, then you don't have this potential to flatten the curve. You have to import basically this possibility from abroad, but of course it's limited by the transmission capacity. So you have much more effect on the peak, and that's what we can see now a little bit. The difference that is happening now between France and Germany, where you really see the peak hours in Germany quite high, and in France it's not that high at all. That and also the Nordic country. If you look at the Nordic country, I mean, Norway can store up to. I think that I made a post on that, but up to 6 months of consumption, which is huge. Especially that they're actually using much more electricity than we do in Western Europe. So it's a very, I mean, it has a very flattening effect, I would say.
Yeah, it's a powerful asset to have all the hydro. It's an interesting perspective because we always think about the French market as having, let's say, less potential for us at the moment due to lower price variability. But of course, we always, automatically link it to the nuclear power capacity. But it's an interesting point of view to say that it's more linked to. How do you see that? Would you say it's more linked to the nuclear capacity, or you think even it's more linked to the hydro capacity that they have?
I cannot say exactly. I think there are still some I don't like to say when I'm not 100% sure. So
I understand.
I don't want to comment. I think one of the things that's happening is when you look at the residual load in France, you see that it's really going down thanks to renewables, but also thanks to I mean, the reduced demand since the energy crisis, which had a big impact on Europe in general. And with this low residual load, then you start to have those assets that were to gain importance, I would say, in the formation of the prices.
Okay, cool. Maybe I want to go into one more topic about another country. One thing I found striking in your comparison lately was the super low capture prices for solar in Spain, which went down to about 20%, I think, if I remember correctly, from your post. Any thing you want to highlight there? Like, what do you think the evolution there will be? Will it even drop further?
I mean, it's so you have the percentage, but you also the absolute value. And as I was saying, like the absolute value, it's even more striking because the average price was already low, and the capture rate was even. I mean, a low capture rate multiplied by the low price. I mean, it's a very, very low capture price. I think I don't see that really like increasing much more in the future. There was a post from SP Global that they were actually forecasting this capture rate to go down very, very quickly in Spain. I mean, Spain and Portugal, I mean, it's kind of like almost an electrical island. They have very limited transmission capacity with the rest of Europe. They basically have connection with France and a very tiny connection, I think, with Morocco. But that's about it. Of course, there are projects for new transmission line, but it's the fact with large transmission project is that it takes time. It takes a long time, so you will not see any major increases. And the renewable projects, especially solar, they tend to go much faster. So I don't see the prices, I mean, for solar really improving. And then it's a societal issue. I mean, it's a societal question in the sense that do we want to keep pushing for solar, and who is willing to take the price risk somehow, you know? And that's.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting point, and I mean, we're getting in some questions, so thank you from the audience. So thank you very much. And one question ties into this perfectly from Tom Nesse. Thank you very much for your question. He asks how long do you think it will take until we reach peak negative prices and we get to a more stable, low energy cost? Could you comment on that question, Julien?
So when we look at negative prices, I think we have to highlight, different dynamics. With the negative prices in Spain, for example, it was the first time for them this year. Actually, it was the first time that it ever happened in Spain, and they are extremely close to zero because they made the right incentive for solar. So basically for solar and wind. So the incentive in place, basically the assets don't produce, or they reduce their production when they reach the limit of what the system can accept, which is extremely different than in other systems, in particular Germany, for example, where you have about 2/3 of solar, and solar in Germany is about like 80 gigawatt. You have about 2/3 of solar that is with feed-in tariff. So people don't stop producing when the price is low, and that's why you have this very negative prices, because you don't stop when you should stop, when the market said to you, okay, when it's a negative price, you should reduce production, and that's a very different dynamic. So I think to respond to the question, we'll reach peak at least in the Benelux and Germany, and when we will solve this issue.
When we get rid of the feed-in tariff, basically, right? Or when all those feed-in tariffs stop, basically.
Or when we get the right incentive. I don't say feed-in tariff are a bad thing. I think that they were good to actually boost generation and boost the adoption of solar. And at some point, you need to have some incentive for people to boost it. And Germany was an early adopter of solar, which helped actually the world, because they put so much solar capacity that it decreases the cost of solar at the end. So I don't want to say that it's a bad thing. I just say that now that we are in this situation, we need to think about solutions to solve it. And there are solutions, and one of the solutions is to put some right financial incentive in place. And I think with smart grids and smart meters and those kind of things, that there are solutions, like at least technically, to make it work.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. There are some other questions that came in that actually tie into this as well. So I'm gonna just keep on continuing looking at the questions there. From Marco, there was a question. Marco Pellegrino, thank you very much for your question. He says, and that's actually a valid question, if capture rates continue to decline in these countries, like you mentioned, like in Spain, Germany, who will still invest, or is there still value? His question is more, is there still value in investing in standalone solar? You already hinted at it earlier. Yeah, do you think we should add more solar in those countries?
That's a very good question. I think the answer is complicated. I think and it's all related to what we were discussing at the beginning, that the fact that LCOE doesn't really show you exactly what's the best for the system. I think we might want to do other technology like wind, for example, which is a little bit slowing down compared to solar, at least. And even if it's more expensive to install, they might have still more value in wind. So it's kind of a trade-off. I think also that with the development of storage, which is becoming a really big thing, and we see the trend happening a little bit like solar, that might also solve a bit the situation, especially in a country like Spain, where it's sunny, not just in May or June and July, and very concentrated like the northern part of Europe, but in the southern part of Europe, especially that as I was mentioning I live there, I can see that. You basically have sun. You also have sun in winter. You have sun all year round. So storage can be a very great solution for actually those daily variations. I have a little bit more doubt about the northern part of Europe, where it's all concentrated. Also, it's not only day and night, it's also very much winter and summer that has a huge difference. I mean, the generation from in the best months in Germany is like 10 times more production than during the worst months of the year. So it's the variation is huge, and therefore long-term storage, batteries are not really well adapted.
No, that I would agree in. And I wanted to add there, I think indeed, as you said, battery, let's say co-locating battery storage with the PV installation. If you look at like other countries around the world, island states, like for example, Hawaii, it's been kind of standard practice to co-locate battery systems next to the solar installation. And I think that's definitely an evolution that we'll see in this market, I guess. There is just no other way to otherwise get value from your solar installation in these markets. One that is linked to that question that was already sent in some minutes ago from Hilliard Macbeth. Thanks for the question, and that's basically turning it around, right? Like, is there still value? Like, we just asked the question, like, is there still value to add by installing more solar into the grid? Here, the other question is like, with these lower prices, will this just cause new investments to shrink in the sector?
Yeah, it's possible. It's also all related to. I mean, basically in solar, you have the one that is not supported, what we can call the corporate PPAs, and that is not supported by the state. And then you still have a lot of solar, and actually the majority of solar that is supported by some kind of auctions, some kind of feed-in tariff, and those ones. I mean, the price risk is not on the investor; it's on the one that organized the auction, which is in general the government. So that's also a question for the government. Do they still want to push and basically put money on the table? Of course, they get it back because you have cheaper prices of energy. Cheaper price of energy also means better potential for increasing demand and industries and potentially job. You know, it's all related, but it's not just that solar will disappear because there are some people that I mean, some government that still want to push for it.
Great.
That was my point.
Interesting point, and that ties into neatly in another question that was asked by Alessandro. I'm just going to continue with the questions here. Thank you very much, all, for asking interesting questions. If you could push, he asks quite clearly, if you could push one policy in the Benelux area, which one would it be and why?
In the Benelux area, I would say invest into the transmission grid and the grid, because we are much stronger together, and I think the big investment to be made in the grid. So I will support that. I'm a huge skeptical about hydrogen in general. I know that the Benelux and Germany, we have kind of had a tendency to really like a strong focus on hydrogen. I'm a bit skeptical because I don't see the project coming. But what I really believe is that transmission grids in general and also distribution grids, at the local level, should be supported. And I'm also a big believer that we should start to electrify heat, and there are huge potential for heat storage in particular. And I think some new invention will be made in heat storage in order to electrify also industrial demand, which still use a lot of gas to actually produce heat.
Great. That also answers, I think, a little bit the question that John asked in the chat about increasing, let's say, heat storage options. That's definitely cool. I wanted to end because we still have 2 more minutes. I wanna wrap this up with a question about like what we're doing with Companion.energy. So we're providing kind of a flexibility software for larger industrial companies. So we work a lot with these large industrials. And from your point of view, are there any strategies that you think that they could still adopt to help mitigate basically this energy price fluctuations, but also to benefit from them? What do you think they need to do?
So I think if I was them, if I was in the industry, I will try to be advised by a company that will actually give me advices on what I can do. And I will try to study, because I think it's difficult to make some generalization. Each industry has its own processes, its own constraints. But I think all the processes in the industry in general, they are optimized, so it's difficult to find flexibility in those processes. But sometimes you can invest, sometimes not a lot, and just with this small investment, you can actually increase a lot the flexibility and actually provide services to the grid in form of reserve, or you can actually benefit much more of the energy prices. And my example that I was explaining on heat storage, I think that's a huge potential for industries in general, because with heat storage, then they can benefit from the low prices during the day, which will happen more and more often, and they can store this heat that can be used for the coming days, because it's much cheaper normally to store heat than storing via batteries. But still, on-site electrical batteries also have a huge potential as well. And I think we are going to see that coming more and more often, especially to manage imbalances, for example. There are many applications for that.
Definitely. And I wanted to end with, I think there was one, not a question from Alper Peker. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this name right at all, but he just wanted to appreciate Julien's work and our recognition to him. So he just wanted to say thank you. So that's of course also allowed next to asking questions. So thanks, Julien, as well from us.
Thank you
for taking the time for this chat with us. We're gonna wrap this up, but we'll be back with some other insights after the summer. And I want to just thank everybody for taking the time to follow this webinar and for asking so many questions. That made it a super nice and interactive session. So thank you very much. I enjoyed it very much. I hope you enjoyed it too, Julien.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much for inviting me. It was great.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a good day.